Today I'm going to show you a project called Subject Matter. It's a first grade lesson. It is a lesson that they just learn all the different genres of art: landscape, cityscape, portrait, abstract, all the different things. But for our project, we're going to focus on cityscapes or landscapes. So we actually have two options for this project, and I'm going to show you quickly how to do each. They're both pretty easy and they're just really not too difficult. Oil pastels and watercolors if you want to do the cityscape. If you want to do the landscape, the forest landscape, you just need oil pastels and paper. So I'm going to show you the cityscape first. So for the cityscape, you're going to start with a white piece of construction paper. You could use construction paper, or if you'd rather, you could use cardstock since we are going to be watercoloring. This is just construction paper and it turned out fine. You just, the paper's a little bit more fragile, but it turns out fine. So our first step in the cityscape is going to be using a black oil pastel. Now, if your class oil pastels look anything like mine, the black's gonna be these little tiny pieces. So you may need to find some good black. Make sure you have enough of the longer black oil pastels. I know I like to make sure the art closet has entire packages of black oil pastels and crayons. So you could use crayons in this project as well, and it would work just as well because we're doing the watercolor resist. So the watercolors just have to be able to go over the crayon or oil pastel and repel that water. So the first thing that you're going to do is have them draw their cityscape right here. So they just need to draw shapes of buildings all along the top. They can make them super basic, just using basic shapes. They can make them look like fancier buildings, whatever they want. So they're just going to start drawing these buildings. And again, they can be really simple. They can just use I know this is first grade, so they can even just use the shapes that they're familiar with. Triangles, rectangles, squares, and just make it really basic. You'll have some that kind of get the concept of what the building would look like, and it'll be a little bit fancier. One thing to remind them is they really want to fill in the space with the oil pastel or black crayon. The better they fill it in, the better it will repel the watercolors. So I'm just going to go along and draw my building outlines right along the bottom of this paper. Once the buildings have been drawn and filled in with the black crayon or oil pastel, now they're going to add the sky colors. So you might want to have a little discussion about what the sky is going to look like. The buildings look black because we're looking at the skyline with a sunset in the back. So as the sun is going down, so you can have a little discussion about what those colors would look like. Yellows to reds, all the way into dark blues and almost black. And maybe just talk about what that would look like. And then you can have them start painting. The great thing about this is it's kind of hard to mess up. They can blend the colors. One thing, especially in first grade, is I remind them that if we're going to use any black, which they might want to use black and dark blue at the top, to make sure we don't use that until the very end, because once their brush touches that black, I feel like it's really hard to reel it back in and not end up with a big kind of muddy watercolor mess. So I kind of encourage them, no black, no brown, unless we're going to do that very last. So then they can just start doing their sunset backdrop, and they can really just take those watercolors right across the oil pastels or crayons, since we've created that resist, that the wax of the crayon or the oil pastels is going to resist that water. I've got the watercolors all in now for our backdrop of our sky. You can stop here and be done. One thing I forgot to mention, especially with first grade, is something that can be frustrating for them is getting the right kind of ratio of water to watercolor paint. So kind of helping them to understand, like, if it feels like the paint isn't spreading and it's too thick, then they need to add a little bit more water. And if they don't feel like there's enough color, then they're using too much water and not enough paint. So it's going to take them a little bit of trial and error, but it's a good lesson for them. So like I said, this can be done and this can be your entire project. Or if you want, you could let it dry. I'll show you in this one that has already dried. And you could have them add, with yellow or white, they could add a moon shape like this. They could add stars as well. Something that they enjoy doing, but it does take a little bit more preparation, is letting them splatter this with white at the top. It's really easy if you are gonna let them splatter. I like to put an Amazon box just at the back of the room, and it's kind of like a station that they can come back to if they choose. And all you're gonna do for this is a toothbrush is your best way to get this done. And you're just gonna use white paint, white tempera paint, put that toothbrush in there, and then just let them splatter that little bit of white. Like I said, it's a little bit messy, which is why I like to do it inside of a box with the kids. I'm just using my finger. You don't have to. You could give them something else to splatter it with. Like you could use a popsicle stick or something, less cleanup. But that's the completed project. Like I said, if you do let them splatter, it does give it a fun little effect. It kind of looks like some stars in the background as the sky is darkening. But that is our cityscape. So now I'm going to show you how to do the forest landscape. It's also very simple. So in our forest landscape, you're going to start with a black piece of paper, and you're going to do a forest with an aurora borealis background. That's kind of what we're trying to make it look like. You may want to show them what the aurora borealis is. They may have never heard of it or seen it, but they might enjoy seeing it and then understand what they're kind of trying to make it look like. So the first thing they're going to do is have their black paper, and then they need an additional piece of construction paper. This can be any color. And they're going to tear along the long edge of the paper. And what they want to do is they can tear it straight across. They can try to make some like peaks. It's really however they want to tear it. And they can just tear it straight across, and whatever it looks like is great. And then they're going to set this on top of their black paper, and they're going to color off of the paper. And they can do it two ways. They can use the oil pastel like this, where they just go off of the paper, or they can use oil pastel that has its wrapper off and go like this. And what I like to do is use 2 or 3 similar colors at a time for each layer of this that you're gonna do. So then they're gonna lift off this and they'll see what they have colored off of the paper. So then they're gonna do it 1 or 2 more times. So they're just gonna tear the paper again so it looks different this time, and kind of tear the paper. One thing that's interesting, and it actually varies color to color and brand to brand, is how this tears. Some paper tears like really straight across, and some is easier to manipulate into different shapes across the top. So you may want to experiment with that a little bit, just so you're giving them the paper that's going to be easiest for them to use. So then they're just going to do another layer, and they don't have to line this up with the bottom. They can tilt it, they can however they want, just however they want to make it look across the paper. And again, they're going to do this 2 or 3 times. So I'm just going to keep going and using different colors as I go. Okay, so I've added my colors. One thing that I wanted to mention is that it can be helpful to show them that they're not going to scribble up and down off of it, that they really have to push away from the paper, or the paper can kind of crumble as they as the crayon or oil pastel kind of pushes back against the paper. So just something that you might find helpful. Okay, so you've added these colors, and now you're going to do your forest landscape down here. So there's a few ways you can do it. You could add water in the front, like you're looking over a lake. You could do just like a snowy backdrop. So in this one, you can see I did kind of like there's a body of water and then a snowy backdrop with the trees. And I'll show you another way that you can make that look. So I'm going to do my white snow, and I'm going to kind of draw that landscape. So I've got my snow, and now I'm going to add my trees. And so you can see in this one, I did the trees like a dark green. You could also just have them do the trees black, so it looks really dark, like it's, you know, darker at night. And these are just really simple, you know, basic Christmas trees is what they'll think of. And then this project, we can do the same thing that we did on our cityscape. If you want, you could let them add the paint splatter. So here's your different examples of subject matter. You could do the cityscape or the forest landscape, whichever you prefer to do with your class.